Thank you for joining us back here on Just Conspiracy, where we just wish to conspire to bring heaven down to earth. Hopefully, other people will join us on this conspiracy, because at this point in history, you're either conspiring to bring heaven down to earth or hell up here. Anyways, getting back to that idea, I am a little concerned about what's going on in the state of our country, and I'll explain why. Number of us on 9/11 saw an interview with Kamala Harris talking about a variety of different things, the state of our nation, where we are, what's going on, what might be happening in the future. And I walked in on a brief little part of this, and it really worried me, and I'll tell you why it really worried me. When I was doing the video about Trump, his case number is 22 MJ 8332, and MJ can stand for magistrate court, or it can stand for military justice, and that is when this thought first popped into my mind. Military justice. Wouldn't that be frightening? They're talking about he has all this confidential top secret stuff. Wouldn't it be frightening if they charged him and didn't give him a real court of law, did not give him a trial by jury? And then I saw this interview.
How much should former President Trump's status as a former president and a potential 2024 candidate, how much should that factor into the decision to charge him?
Well, I wouldn't dare tell the Department of Justice what to do. As a former prosecutor, I will tell you, I am not in the business of telling a prosecutor what to do with their case, because they know best the facts and the evidence as applied to the law. And so I'm not going to tell them what to do. And certainly the President and I and our administration, unlike the previous administration,
Right,
have been very careful to make sure that there is no question about any kind of interference in terms of the decisions that the Department of Justice makes.
What I basically took from that is Donald Trump is going to get charged. Now, this isn't a real big surprise. I mean, what is going on is absolutely extraordinary. People are talking about how extraordinary it is. It's not necessarily a surprise that if his house got raided, he's going to be charged. They brought him up on charges twice while he was president. But this is a little bit different, because when he was president and you get brought up on charges, it goes before the Senate. You know, that's kind of standard operating procedures. But when you're a civilian, it has to go before a jury. And a lot of people recognize the fact that it'd basically be impossible to have Trump convicted in front of a jury. It would almost be impossible, it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're in, to get 12 people where one of them would not hang the jury, where one of them would not, I forget what they call it, use jury nullification. It would basically be impossible. And I've had this conversation with several people, and I've actually thought about it. I don't think it would be impossible. I just think you'd probably have to get 12 non-voters, people who don't really care about politics, which is one of the reasons why I'm talking about it, is because I don't care one way or the other. I really don't. It really does not matter to me. I don't vote. I haven't voted since 2008. The last person I voted for was Obama, because I believed in hope and change. Then I realized voting is not going to get us out of this situation. If voting were going to get us out of this situation, it would have happened a long time ago. It would have happened way before we started losing all of our rights, because we've always had this power to vote. It's really just that simple. So, with that question, that answer basically told me in my mind, Trump is going to be charged. Now, let's hear the next question and answer. Because these are the three questions that really, really concerned me.
All right.
in that regard.
But let me try to go to 60,000 feet. What do you say to the argument that it would be too divisive for the country to prosecute a former president?
I think that our country is a country that has gone through different periods of time where the unthinkable has happened, and where there has been a call for justice, and justice has been served. And I think that's potentially going to always be the case in our country, that people are going to demand justice, and they rightly do.
Well, I agree. It's always been a call of our country to demand justice. But what type of justice do we get after it's demanded? There was this time pretty recently where a gentleman named George Floyd died. Basically was murdered on camera. And the people demanded justice. And because they weren't given justice, they took it for themselves. They got violent. They rioted. They destroyed things. Then eventually, they got justice. Why wasn't justice freely given from the beginning? And what type of justice are we talking about? Because when you're talking about charging the former president, first of all, that's almost unheard of. Even Nixon didn't get charged, he just left office. So when you're talking about charging a former president, that's pretty unheard of and extreme. What is this unthinkable things? In my mind, the only thing that would be absolutely unthinkable if Trump got charged would be for it to go to a military tribunal and not a jury. And what would be the reasoning for this? What would be the excuses? It's top secret. It's national security. We can't just let a jury see this information. It's too sensitive. It's too classified. And when you start having situations like that in a state, where the state can keep things so classified that it's impossible for you to fight them, you live in a police state. And this wouldn't be the first time that it happened. In fact, when the CIA was bringing in cocaine from South America, and then they were prosecuting people who were selling the cocaine for the CIA, like Rick Ross, what did they tell the court? They said, our information about this stuff is so classified, we can't tell you how we know that Rick Ross was selling cocaine because he was doing it for the CIA. We have to keep this secret. A lot of people got locked up over that before a reporter started figuring it out. Before Mr. Webb started writing about it. And then they ruined his life. 100%. Because those are the things that happen when you start exposing corruption in a corrupt state. They go after you. And because most people don't really know and understand the law, they don't get it. The same thing that they would go after Trump for, and the same reason why people should argue with it, because believe me, what they are counting on is for the public to make stupid arguments, to make political arguments, so that they stay divided and fighting with each other. And the real argument to make is the same argument I made. What's the nature of the wrong and the cause of the accusation? What did he do specifically? Because ex-presidents are allowed to have top secret and classified information. In fact, they've been fighting for years to take this right away from Trump because they don't trust him. Apparently the American people do, otherwise he would not have been president at least once. Now, I don't think it would be the best thing for him to be president again. I believe it would be way too divisive for America. I think it would be way too dividing. I think the same way that Joe Biden divides America, Trump divides America, and if we wish to heal, we gotta quit dividing each other. It's the only way to happen. There is no way that we're going to heal from the wounds that we have put upon each other without coming to some sort of middle ground. But the only unthinkable thing I could imagine that would happen in Trump's case, he wouldn't get a trial by jury. He would get a military tribunal. And if he got a military tribunal, I'm going to tell you right now, that would be about the time everybody should start freaking out. Because if they can do it to the former president of the United States, they can do it to you, and they plan on it. This is just their way of getting consent from the public. That's it. Here's the last question and answer.
Have you thought through the scenarios that you might face on January 6, 2025?
Not at all. No. I mean, well, listen, what have I thought about? I have thought about the fact that right now we have an election in less than 2 months. And if we're going to look at timelines, that's one of the most immediate timelines that I'm looking at.
I know, but I mean, have you thought about how you might handle a certification that did not reflect the outcome of the popular vote in the state?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. I have to believe that that the United States Congress and all people who have taken an oath to defend our democracy will ensure and will stand up against anyone who tries to destroy or circumvent the rules and the practices and procedures that we've had in place that have allowed a peaceful transfer of power since the inception of our nation and the founding of our nation. And getting back to the ultimate point, that is what we're talking about when we think about January 6th. We have always had a peaceful transfer of power in our nation, no matter our differences, no matter how
Well, we can't say that now,
bloody-knuckled
can we?
we've been in campaigns.
Can we say that now?
Well, certainly we were on the verge of having a very different outcome. And the injury was still an injury for which we still are experiencing the wound.
The injury is still an injury for which we're still experiencing the wound. But here's what I noticed. She didn't just say, no, we can't say that anymore because that was a violent transfer of power. And in my opinion, the reason she can't say that is because it didn't have to be. There is no way that the most powerful nation in the world could not have kept the people who ran into the State House, who ran into the Capitol building. There's no way we do not have the power and the force to have stopped that and prevented that. If we have the power and the force to take down Iraq in a couple of weeks militarily, and we can't stop a couple thousand people, maybe, I don't know how many people showed up, from entering our own State House, from entering our own Capitol building. And what really concerns me about this question is I feel like this is a lot of foreshadowing. And I don't know if this stuff is going to happen or not, but I'd rather talk about it and have people talking about it than see it happen and go, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Because if we talk about it, maybe it will prevent it. But when he's asking her, do you know what you would do if you had to certify an election that didn't reflect the popular vote of the state? Well, that happens all the time, usually with Republican candidates, because we live in a republic where it doesn't matter what the populist vote of the state is. What really, really matters is what the Electoral College votes. We've had this issue for a long time. They've talked about changing it before. So what is he talking about? Would they actually overturn the true and lawful election of the Electoral College? I don't know. I don't know. But why are you asking, would you do what we're accusing them of? Because honestly, it should be kind of a hands down answer. And I don't know why she didn't just give a hands down answer and say, no, I would never do that because that's what we're accusing them of. So it's incredibly concerning to me. Anyways, we are just conspiracy and we just wish to conspire to bring heaven down to earth. I'm trying to get the YouTube channel monetized, so I'd appreciate any likes, comments. I see the last video got a lot of comments and likes. I'm very, very happy, so thank you everybody who is perpetuating that kind of movement. I really, really appreciate it. Even if you don't agree with me, even if you're arguing on there, at least you're talking about me. Whether you love me or hate me, you're talking about me, and I appreciate it greatly. One world, love, and peace.
And so they kept trying to pull us into equitable distribution. I can tell you the only thing that could be equitable distribution is Josephine is not giving Dad half the amount of money for a car and some other items. Everything else is in trust property. That is a contract, private contract between the two of them and the trustees. And then they went to this courthouse, to the Register of Deeds, took out 2 properties, forged, and they colluded, and through fraud, they took the property out of the name of the trust and sold. They sold the property.